Sensing and responding to the world. Now that we've discussed making circuits that run and talking to your board, let's talk about the fun part, inputs and outputs. Inputs and outputs are an aspect of hardware. Here are some of the main concepts we'll cover. Outputs and inputs, digital and analog. The abilities of the Arduino can be divided into two categories, sensing and reading information, and actions that are responses to that information. Sensing and reading information items are referred to as inputs. So for instance, sensing the water content, levels of light or darkness, distance of surroundings, or movement, such as a joystick or button, would all be examples of inputs. If you're taking in information from the outside world with something, it is an input. Responses to that information, or anything in which something is being put out into the world, are referred to as outputs. For instance, an LED blinking, a motor running, a speaker beeping would all be examples of outputs. If you're putting something into the world, that action is an output. There are two types of input-output systems, analog and digital. With digital inputs and outputs, there are two states of being, on or off, high or low, and 5 volts or 0 volts. Think of a light switch. It simply turns on and off. In an analog system, there are gradated levels between on and off. For instance, think of a dimmer switch. Digital systems. The series and parallel exercises you completed in the circuitry section were examples of digital systems. Now let's show it again. If you open the serial monitor, visible on the top right-hand side, you can see the system registering the button pushes as ones. When the button is not being pushed, the circuit is not completed, and the serial monitor displays a 0. There are no in-between light values. The LED in this case only turns on or off, as shown with the 1s and 0s, because a digital input is being used. Analog system. Copy the setup on your own board. Remember that the short end of the LED should always go to ground. Download and open the sample file titled Light Sensor. Once you have everything set up on your board, plug in your USB cable to the computer. Upload the code. Try covering the photoresistor and see how the light values change accordingly. By opening up the serial monitor in Arduino, upper right-hand corner, it's a little magnifying glass icon, you are able to see the changes in light shown in the photo cell's input readings. So you can see the numbers go higher when it's exposed and lower when I limit the amount of light hitting the sensor. To recap, in this section you've learned that the Arduino has two main abilities, sensing and reading information, inputs, and actions that are responses to that information, outputs. You've also learned that a system may be digital, which only includes two states, or analog, which includes gradated steps between low and high voltage values.